What was the response of Israel to the report of most of the spies? This is the question, and we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Numbers on Walking Through the Bible.
His word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, turn to Numbers chapter 14. We're going to be reading from verses 1 to 10. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Numbers 14, beginning of verse 1. So all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, If only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in this wilderness. Why has the Lord brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? So they said to one another, Let us select a leader and return to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes, and they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, The land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. And all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Now the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle of meeting before all the children of Israel. The children of Israel are in Kadesh in the wilderness. The spies have returned from the promised land with the report that the land was just as God had told them, a land flowing with milk and honey. However, part of their report included that the cities were well fortified and the armies were formidable. It was therefore the conclusion of 10 of the spies that they could not take the land. Only Caleb, and from what we just read a few moments ago, Joshua, said that they could take the land. And so what was the response of Israel to this report? To side with the 10 spies and say that they couldn't take the land. They first blamed God for bringing them up out of Egypt. What a contrast of statements that is to be the one found in Exodus 2, verses 23 to 25, which says, Now it happened in the process of time that the king of Egypt died. Then the children of Israel groaned because of the bondage, and they cried out, and their cry came up to God because of the bondage. So God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God acknowledged them. Back then they complained of their treatment and prayed for deliverance. However, it seems like they wanted to be delivered, but everything to be handed to them on a silver platter, without having to work for it. Well, life doesn't work like that. If we choose that we will be lazy and not work, we do not deserve to eat. God never promised Israel that they would receive the promised land without having to fight for it. And yet they wanted to go back to slavery. They further blamed God for not letting them die in the wilderness. That too is quite amazing, for they were the ones who pleaded with God for water or for food. God could have let them die in the wilderness, but no, he showed them mercy and miraculously provided them water from the rock and manna from heaven. And yet now they wished that they had died in the wilderness, so they, their wives, and their children wouldn't have to die by the sword. Then they turned and blamed Moses and Aaron for leading them out of Egypt. How do we know? Because they wanted to select another leader and return to Egypt. If they had actually done this, what a blasphemy this would have been to the God of heaven, to have his chosen people return to Egypt and ask Pharaoh to enslave them again. Pharaoh would have most likely said to himself and to Egypt that the God of the Hebrews was not a powerful God, for he could not deliver them to the promised land, and now his own people have rejected him. The statement by Israel was so stunning that Moses and Aaron fell on their faces in disgust. As a last-ditch effort, Joshua and Caleb tried to change Israel's mind and tried to convince them that if God was on their side, they could take this land. They told them that they did not need to fear the people of the land, for they are our bread, meaning that they would be easily defeated. They went on to say that the protection that this people had departed from them, meaning that the Lord was not going to protect them. He was going to protect Israel. If they would not rebel, these things would be true. Did Israel change their mind? No, for the congregation picked up stones to stone them with stones. Their minds were made up. They wanted to go back to Egypt. However, it was not over, for the Lord was now going to get the opportunity to speak. What would be his response? We'll find out, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Numbers chapter 14, verses 11 to 19, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.